President Trump, convention holds, was weak in dealing with the problem of Russia. Compromised by allegations of Russian links, he was half-hearted in tackling its regional aggression, or so the argument holds. President Biden, on the other hand, is said to be tougher on Russia, actively compensating for the alleged failings of his predecessor. In rhetoric, there is some truth to this. President Trump too often equivocated when asked to condemn the actions of Vladimir Putin. In contrast, President Biden has, if anything, been outright provocative to the Russian side, correctly branding Putin a killer. In action, though, President Biden has, at least in one regard, taken an altogether weaker line. The United States has, since it was first mooted, been resolute in opposing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, a gas pipeline that would allow Russia to circumvent Ukraine in sending its natural gas to Germany. The obvious geostrategic ramification of the move is that it would allow Russia to act against Ukraine, a nation it views at times as a breakaway province, without economic consequences, as well as saving it billions of dollars in transit fees. For this reason, both NATO leaders and the US have viewed its development as a major geostrategic danger. President Trump, who never seemed happier than when ticking off Europeans for their defense shortcomings, held a firm line with Germany. Under his leadership, Republicans pushed to sanction both the builders and financiers of the project. Sanctions under his administration hurt so much that the pipeline supporters in Europe rounded on Trump, his policies, and the US more generally. Austrian and German politicians publicly rebuked the US, saying, "Europe's energy supply is a matter for Europe and not for the United States of America." Unusually, however, Washington, Democrat and Republican alike, stood by the president in his defense of long-standing US policy. Earlier this year, Congress further toughened sanctions on those involved in the project. President Biden, however, took an altogether weaker tack. In May this year, he lifted all the sanctions, reaching a negotiated settlement with Germany. The disappointment and fear of the Ukrainians, who appear not to have been forewarned, was palpable. Russia, on the other hand, welcomed the move. Energy supplies are one of those areas of economic life where a shortage is not just an inconvenience, it is a national security issue. Right now, Europe is seeing and learning how fickle Putin can be when exploiting Europe's strategic dependency. As The Times reported last week, British ministers believe that Putin's decision to limit gas exports to Europe is tied to two strands of Putin's self-interest. Firstly, to drive up the cost of gas and generate personal profit, and secondly, to secure final approval for Nord Stream 2. Both are aims that place Russian self-interest at their core. Tellingly, however, Russia has managed to find increased gas supply to send to its authoritarian neighbours in China. Right now, anyone seeking to heat their house in Europe is suffering spiralling costs as a consequence of Russia's willingness to exploit any angle for its own benefit. With Putin's actions plain to see, surely now is a time for Europe to change its course. As we have seen with the widespread global awakening to the threat posed by China, it is never too late to respond to authoritarian aggression. Germany has allowed itself to be boxed into a corner with Nord Stream 2, but it could recognise its mistake at any moment. President Biden, meanwhile, now has all the evidence he needs to understand how nefarious Putin can be in exploiting energy dependence. As natural gas prices spiral, we can but hope the rise in pressure forces the West to treat strategic dependency seriously.